Hey guys, it's Alexander Williamson here with The Secret History Living Inside Your Aquarium. So, today we are going to talk about an amazing new book that is out. It's now out in English. It's been out for about a year in Deutsch or German, and it is from a luminary in our field, in our hobby, and in the botany world, actually. And the reason I have this book here in the United States at the time that I do right now, before it's online for sale on Amazon or anywhere else, is because of a viewer and a friend named Alan. So thank you so much, Alan, for hooking this up, setting this up, ordering it. But it's not just one book that I have. Alan set me up with 2 signed copies of this book, which we're going to jump into, we're going to look at, we're going to review, and we're going to talk about. And this is a book, it is really a color picture, photography, all weather great book. It's well made, it's sturdy, it looks like it could even withstand a little splash of water, but it's just, you need it for your fish room, for your aquascapes. It's a must-have book. It's right up there with, Diane Walstead's book or Karen Randall's Walstead's on the Walstead method, or soil-planted aquariums, dirted aquariums, that is. And then Karen Randall's with sunken gardens, and her discussing different plants and things in that book. I would put this, I'm going to put it right on top of all that and say that this Christel Kasselmann book, Aquatic Plants, is the new gold standard. It's an updated version of an already amazing book. It's almost 700 pages, and there's almost 900 color photography photos of different plants and just flowering, underwater, immersed. Different setups in tanks and all sorts of things. So we're going to get into that, and we're also going to give one copy signed by Christel Kasselmann of this book to one of you viewers. So stay tuned for that, and let's jump in. Let's look at the book, right? All right, let's go. Dum-ba-da-dum-ba-dum. All right, so I heard from Alan. Alan, thank you so much, buddy. A longtime viewer of the channel, longtime supporter of the channel, and Alan I met when he came out from the east coast of things. He came out to Seattle, which is, way far from everywhere else, for the 2019 AGA, the Aquatic Gardener Association meeting. So I met Alan there. Him and I we picked up Lagonandra me bold eyes. He got the silver powder, and I got the Christel Kasselmann auctioned off, and then Karen Randall also had some plants. But some of our favorite plants were brought to the auction by the women that we're going to be discussing, these 3 key women authors in the hobby. And just, these people are amazing minds in the hobby, but they're also, they're milestones in technique and in knowledge in the hobby. They really are the Alexandria library of knowledge type people. You get these people in the hobby not so often. We've got, on the male side of things, we've got Heiko Blair and Tom Barr, folks like that. And on this side, we've got, people like Helen Nash, Steve Strope, and then, of course, Christel Kasselmann, The Aquarium Plants. This is the book right here, new and updated. This is what we were talking about. It just came out. I'm going to give it a little overview, a little review, so to speak, but let me back up. So Alan helped me out. He said, I'm going to hook you up, and I'm going to send you a copy of the book. So here it is, sent from Christel Kasselmann online. You can get it on her website right now. It's in euros, which is fine, and it'll come in a package like this. This one was sent on May 5th and just arrived. So I don't know what happened. I think it got quarantined for the bug or something like that. I really don't know. It was in German customs being inspected and unpacked, and then it was also later held by U.S. Customs. So it took a while for me to get this, but it should go quicker for most folks that I've talked to. But I just wanted to show you everything's still wrapped in this copy except for artfully cut into just to open. Best regards, Christel. So she signed this book. We're going to set this one aside for safety so that it does not get harmed. But let's take a look at this book. Let's jump in. Let me make sure that the light looks a little funky on the lens here. Hold on one sec. All right, there we go. So let's jump in on this book and take a look at what we've got. So she is a very, very intelligent woman, and I got to briefly listen to her speaking and just kind of chatting amongst friends at AGA, where people from all over the world were here in Seattle. And, you know, you could definitely see a lot of people just kind of glowing while they were talking to her, getting to meet her in person. But the first part of this book is really defining things that you may already know about the hobby, but there's useful stuff. So it talks about if you've got plants in the aquarium, you know, what the water conditions, what the chemistry, the acidity, the light conditions, the water current, oxygen levels, all these sort of things, what they will be like. So maybe you don't know the plant itself very well, but maybe you know it's from lakes in Indonesia. Well, this whole first part really helps you with discussing different biotopes and different types of climates that you can find these plants in, and it really helps you discussing, like, you know, if it's coming from the Rift Lakes in Africa, you're going to have a very high pH. It's going to be a basic with high minerality type thing, and probably a sturdy plant that doesn't just grow completely underwater. If it's from Madagascar, Panagitan or something, it's probably going to grow totally underwater and very weird because it's been separate for so long, you know. And then the other great thing is, you know, she's got pictures of fish and animals and everything in the habitat interacting. But what this book does that is great is it also goes into sustainability of harvesting and of how we as a hobby, how we source these things and how we should source these things. It's really interesting. It goes into, once you get in the actual, I guess I'd call it an atlas type setup, but it's all alphabetized. And the whole thing is alphabetized, so you can see there's letters up in the top corner, and it goes by Latin name and by the type of plant. So, you know, you're going to have a Panagitan, blah, blah, blah. And then you're going to have cryptokerns. And so there are hundreds of plants she has included in this. I think in the Bucephalandra section alone, there's like 100. So, really impressive in that sense. But I'll give you a taste here. Like, Alternanthera renickii, it's got the purple, the pink, the mini. You know, it's got all sorts of different versions of these plants in here. And it also is always showing, almost always, if it has a flowering component, it's showing the flower component, because that's how we identify a lot of these plants in the hobby. And a lot of times in these pages, she's also got photos of where it grows in the wild, or maybe where it's growing in captivity, how it will grow once established in an aquarium for a while, or maybe where it's growing in a nursery in Indonesia or in India, that kind of thing. You know, one thing that was interesting was on the Taiwanese lily, or the Taiwanese nymphoides, Thai water lily. It talks about how we don't really know where the variation came from, and or the variant came from, and it could be a Taiwanese plant mixed with one with a plant from Kerala, India, and it was found in Singapore, I believe, in 1994. So there's just little trivia that she has done the research on that is just incredible on detail about this. And, you know, for plants in particular, crypts are a really hard one to find photos of them flowering and things like that. And in this book, where I've never seen any other book go into such depth with this, but great color pictures. Every page has photos and pictures of the plants, blooming and flowering, of immersed growth and aquatic growth, and it labels it well. Obviously each picture is labeled really well. Interesting things like from seed pods to buds to, maybe it'll cover 5 species that are in a similar area. And so within a 10-page range, you'll see pictures like this that show where it's growing in a trickling stream that is very clear, but like kind of black water, something like that. Or here where it's in a moving stream, or a lake. So I think that's really cool. None of these books that I have go into this kind of depth on any of this. And with crypts, a lot of times they look really similar until you get them blooming, and that really is how we tell them apart. And there's a lot of variations, and pink panther, pink flamingo, and it goes into how those are really one species, and it gets into their commonalities and why they are considered one, or why she has categorized something as a variety versus a species or subspecies type thing. And I just think that's really fascinating. She's got a lot of plants in here. Pretty much anything you could hope and dream for is in this book. And let's pick one and look. We'll actually look at all the information on it. I want to pick one that's in my tank so we can kind of compare. These are all sword plants in here. I mean, it's just great. But I mean, this list is fantabulous. So, I know a good one. And look at the different flowers she's got photos of. So a lot of these plants, like I said, you're not going to be able to tell them apart until you see them flowering. And so she's gone to the trouble of finding that terrestrial growth, or that surface growth happening right at the water's surface. And that requires a lot of light. That requires finding photos usually out in nature or in a pond, honestly, unless you're really set up for high-tech growth. And I've flowered Anubias and Bucephalandra and a few crypts, but it's tough work, She's got information about how to set the light spectrum properly and all that, but it's really interesting. So here's one on Hygrophila polysperma. That's one we're not supposed to have here in Washington State, which is interesting in my mind because we actually have this kind right here, the tropic sunset kind we find in our lakes. But it's got great information about it. So when we look at it, this one in particular has a longer description, but it goes into how often to trim it. Goes into the ecology, occupies swampy areas, irrigation channels, slow-moving streams and rivers. And then it has anecdotal stories, too. I found H. polysperma in North Mexico in 3 locations where plants are probably settled by locals. Location 1, a canal. Location 2, in a village, water slightly cloudy. Interesting. She talks about the fish that live there, in between innumerable live-bearing tooth carps. Soil is muddy, water slightly cloudy due to dirty water discharges. Water is 37 degrees Celsius, pH 8.3. Ooh, that's some hard water. GH 30. And KH 12 and a TDS 775. That's some hard water. So that's just kind of interesting, though, that she goes into all of this, and then she talks about finding it in Sri Lanka, in Thailand, and then differences that she found between them. This is the one that I happen to have found locally, even though we're not supposed to buy and sell it. I have this plant in my tank, and I'll show you. It looks very nice, but this is a plant that can look really different just depending on what kind of growing conditions it's under. And so she shows that very, very well. You know, and it's got everything about like how you want to take care of it, and you know, tropic sunset wild form, very well growing plant, very no differ in requirements from care. So a lot of times you can look at the main species rather than these subspecies or variants. Promotes medium light intensity, promotes brown red colored shoot tips in which the decorative white veining clearly stands out. A group of this cultivar thus forms an unusual enrichment for the planting. Tropic Sunset was discovered by Florida Aquatic Nurseries, FAN, from one stem in a production tank. It was issued a patent on the plant in 1985. That's interesting that it has a patent. In Europe, Tropic Sunset is sold under the cultivar name Rosanervig. Hygrophila polysperma is an invasive species in the U.S. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. So she's got all this great info in here, and I'll show you in my tank how mine looks. But here, I mean, I would never imagine that it flowers up like this. I wouldn't imagine that its plant looked like this above water. So if you're thinking like maybe I will grow this plant, it lets you know, should you do it? Do you have the means to even do it? And you know, this one's interesting. India, Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, and introduced to Mexico. So man, that's a widespread plant. And it's all over the Northwest now too. But, you know, just great resources here in the book. I highly recommend you pick up a copy. It's a little pricey, but it's worth it. It will serve you all through the hobby. I mean, look at this thing compared to my hand. It is a beefy book. It's hardbound. It's very nice. Semi-gloss pages. Comes in a brick of protection as it's being shipped. But just to compare, I mean, Karen Randall, very sweet woman, very nice, intelligent lady. I met her at AGA also briefly, and you know, there's a difference here in these books. This is like kind of a cursory look at over that. You know, here there was a Hygrophila that she talked about very briefly there. In her book, she goes more into maintenance and, you know, kind of a basic overview of everything, but in a way that I think it's useful. You can't remember all these things always, like what wavelength this or that crypt wants to flower in, but you can find things like how you want to set up your lights, what kind of lights you're looking for, and buying generalities when you set up a tank in this book here. It has some pictures of the wild stuff, but I mean, there's really no one out there that's created a book that rivals this in any way. I don't think, anyways. I mean, it's just incredible. So, and it's got kind of like a key in the back that has water values of all the plants. So it's like a cheat guide for how to care for the plants, you know, where it came from, all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, it just blows any other guide to aquatic plants for the aquarium specifically out of the water. I would say that for pond plants specifically, there may be some better resources, but this is a pretty darn good one. It has a lot of lilies, a lot of larger floating plants and things like that. I mean, just the Anubias alone, she really she kind of goes in and talks about the taxonomy of stuff and really gets into her opinion as a botanist of, you know, like, I didn't know that Cophifolia, Anubias cophifolia, here we go, was actually just a variety of Barteri. And she's kind of gone ahead and she says she spoke with other people in the hobby, you know, and in the scientific community, and that's what they've gone ahead and done. But I mean, this book covers, you know, the marble, the albino, or the white, you know, snow white, whatever you want to call it, and it goes into, you know, just intense detail on all this stuff and what to expect with all the variations. So, you know, she likes to use variations to break down the species, once they're significantly visually different enough. So I would say, though, that this is a new must-have book. This may be the book you should pick up. So check it out. And, you know, we've got an extra copy of the book, like I said. So stay tuned for the next few videos. We're going to be giving away another $300 in gift certificates to the aquaticarts.com website, which of course is linked below if you need any of these plants. But we've got a signed and still in the plastic, mostly, other than the cover, copy of this book, which we'll be sending out, and Alan and I will be judging. And Alan and I have decided it is going to be an aquascaping contest. You don't need to have lots of money or skill. You just need to have inspiration and then execution. It could be an Iwagumi aquascape, where you keep it very simple and you use 3 stones as your main composition and 1 plant, you know. But we're going to say that you need a photo for inspiration and then a photo for execution of how you did it. So this may take a little while, and so it may be, maybe we'll say like a month out is when we'll call the end of it. You could probably use stuff from the past too. But I would say that this book, the Dennerley done by Stefan Hummel and Chris Lukampf, the Aquascaping Guide, is another great book. I would say Sunken Gardens by Karen Randall, another great book to have. And then the Aquarium Plant Guide by Stefan Hummel and Chris Lukampf, who is aka the Shrimp King, another really great one to have. The Toy Fish for history of our hobby in the US and Europe. And then lastly, for planted tanks and planted gardens, plants for water gardens. And the last book that's not handy with me, the Diane Walstead, I think it's called The Ecology of Aquariums and Planted Tanks, or something to that effect. But it goes into, and it was really the first of this series of books that I've shown off here, that tells you how to set up a planted aquarium, how to use soil before there were products on the market that you could really go out and buy just for that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little video. I know it was a little long, but I felt that this book really did deserve a proper review, and you guys should be able to look through it a little bit, since it's not the cheapest book. But I would gladly pay twice as much for this book. So check that out. Also, if you like this stuff, I'm going to be adding new stuff to the Teespring store. The link is in the description below, but we've got new things like masks and phone cases with new fish illustrations that I've done on them. Things like salmon and shellies and leopard plecos, all sorts of stuff. So lots of books, reading material, even if you're stuck alone during this whole lockdown on and off, first wave, second wave, whatever it ends up being, you know. There's a lot of good reading material and merchandise out there in the world for you guys to check out. So I'll have links in the description to this website, where to get the book and all that, and to Christel's website. And thank you so much, guys. Have a great day. Take care of each other, your plants, your tanks, your critters, and of course, yourself, or you can't do the other stuff. All right, guys. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.